What's going on, Ghost Squad? Trey here, the Ghost Tactical, and today we're going to go over some bills that have already been filed that are pro-gun bills. Now, we're not talking at the federal level. I apologize if you guys are here to see that. We're talking about here in the state of Arkansas, or we call it AR Kansas, or the Tactical Kansas. And basically what these are bills that are in our legislative session that started last week and have already been filed. There's three of them in particular that I'm very excited about for the potential of getting passed and signed by the governor, which I think hopefully they will. Before we get into these bills, we do want to make sure that everyone out there is staying vigilant with their local and state politics. We know that there's some craziness going on at the federal level, but most of your infringements on the Second Amendment are probably going to come within the local and the state levels. So make sure that you know what's going on with your representatives and senators and your elected officials locally and state level to find out exactly what's going on. Make sure you're on top of all the bills that are being filed and all of that. If there's something that's pro, make sure that they know that you want them to vote for that. If it's negative, make sure you want them to vote against that. So just stay vigilant on your local and state politics, because that's really where most of the infringements will probably turn their ugly faces at. But as far as Arkansas goes, it's a pretty gun-friendly state, as most people know. Even the Democrats here own guns. So I think that as of last year, or whatever it was, Arkansas was the second in the nation per capita for gun ownership, only behind Alaska. We were at like 70%. Now, Alaska's like 80-something%, but we were like around 70%. So we're a very gun-friendly state. So if you're looking to move somewhere, think about Arkansas. It's a really pretty area, and it's very, very good for gun rights. So the first bill we want to talk about is Senate Bill 59. And this one was presented by Senators Bollinger and Garner and Representative Gonzalez, Pilkington, McCollum, and Dotson. And the title of it is an act to require state agencies and public officers to disregard unconstitutional overreaches of power to protect the constitutional rights of Arkansans, to prevent the federal government from regulating the manufacture, assembly, and trade of firearms within the borders of Arkansas. The small subtitle, or the common title, is going to be the Arkansas Second Amendment Liberty Safeguards Act. Now, I'm reading here from the screen, so if I'm not looking directly into the camera, I apologize, but I'm going to read directly from the bills that have been filed. It's going to amend Arkansas Code Title IV as amended to add an additional chapter to read as follows: Jurisdiction over firearm regulation. So basically what's going to happen is this is going to apply to where the federal government cannot regulate, register, and all of that. And it's going to apply to firearm accessories, or ammunition that is manufactured in Arkansas from basic materials that can be manufactured without the inclusion of any significant parts imported from another state. It's also going to cover generic and insignificant parts that have other manufacturing or consumer product applications that are not firearm accessories, or ammunition imported into Arkansas and incorporation into a firearm or accessory. It's also going to say that basic materials such as unmachined steel and unshaped wood are not firearms, firearm accessories, or ammunition, and are not subject to congressional authority to regulate firearms, firearms accessories, and ammunition under interstate commerce as if they were actual firearms, accessories, or ammunition. What it's not going to cover is this. Now get ready, because this is some serious stuff. It's not going to apply to a firearm that cannot be carried and used by one person, a firearm that has a bore diameter greater than 1.5 inches and uses smokeless powder, not black powder, but smokeless powder, as a propellant. It's not going to cover ammunition with a projectile that explodes using an explosion of chemical energy after the projectile leaves a firearm, or other than shotguns, a firearm that discharges 2 or more projectiles with one activation of the trigger or other firing device. So basically what it's saying is for most everything, maybe even polymer or 80s, anything that is going to use for materials that you can get within the state and it's not going to leave the state, it's saying that if you're an Arkansan, those items are not up to regulation or registration under the federal government, which I love. This is Arkansas saying, not on my watch. just stay away. We're going to control our own. And if we're not doing anything illegal, then we're going to handle our people within the state and we're going to allow them to do this. So I love this. I'm very happy for this. Thank you to the congressmen and the senators that have filed this, and I hope it makes it to Governor Hutchinson's desk to sign. So that is Senate Bill 59. So the next bill that we're going to talk about is House Bill 1111, or HB 1111. And it was filed by Representatives Cloud, Ladyman, and Lundstrom. The official title is An Act Concerning the Recognition of Another State's License to Carry a Concealed Handgun and for Other Purposes. And basically what it's going to do is Section Code 5-73-321 is amended to read the following. A person in possession of a valid license to carry a concealed handgun issued to the person by another state that recognizes as Arkansas license to carry a concealed handgun in that state is entitled to the privileges and subject to the restrictions prescribed by this subchapter. Basically, it's saying is if you recognize Arkansas's concealed carry permit, and you're from another state that does recognize it, then your concealed carry permit is automatically going to be recognized here in Arkansas. Now, some people may not think this is a big deal and it's like whatever and all that. It's a huge deal for a couple of reasons. The first is, what if you're traveling and you're traveling through Arkansas and you have a concealed carry permit issued in Kansas, and Kansas recognizes Arkansas's concealed carry permit, then yours is automatically recognized as you travel through the state. Now, obviously, you have to abide by our laws and all that, but your permit is already recognized. So for travel, if you're out there and your job takes you to travel, if you're traveling with your family, that is going to be a huge thing. Now, the biggest reason why I think this could be awesome is this is a step in the direction to saying, and I hope this happens, is why don't states just say, we recognize all 50 states' concealed carry permits? The reason why I say that is this. If you're California and you don't recognize Arkansas's concealed carry permit, that doesn't make any damn sense to me. If the state of Arkansas has gone through their due diligence, their background checks, I've done the testing, I've gone to the classes, all that stuff that is required to get my concealed carry permit here in Arkansas, and the state of Arkansas says, yes, you're good to go, and they trust me to have a concealed carry permit here in the state, why in the hell do other states not recognize that? Okay, you get a driver's license, you pass your test, and you're able to drive in the state of Arkansas. Well, that driver's license is recognized all over the country, every single state in the country. So why isn't a concealed carry permit done the same way? If you have to go through a background check and you have to get the state to recognize you have the ability to conceal carry with this permit, other states should automatically recognize that just like a driver's license. I'm just saying, but the reason why this is important is if we can move in that direction and all other states saying, you know what, we're going to recognize every other state's concealed carry permit, then we won't have to worry about the bureaucracy in Washington and have to pass a national reciprocity bill. We don't have to do that if the states take it amongst themselves and take it upon themselves and say, if you have a state-issued license to conceal carry, then that's covered in all 50 states. We should be moving towards this to where we don't have to worry about some bureaucracy in Washington telling us it's okay. So maybe we should start moving that direction and get your congressmen, your senators at the state level to start doing this stuff to where you recognize every other state to where we don't have to worry about a national law. Now the big one. This is the one that I'm most excited about because I think it's actually going to pass this time. This is something that's been going on in Arkansas for a long time, but it's always had opposition from different political groups and honestly law enforcement organizations. It's a stand your ground bill, and it's been turned down over the years. We have a duty to retreat still here in Arkansas, which is asinine to me, but that's the way it goes. But from what I'm understanding, talking to different representatives and to different law enforcement officials that are in these organizations, with all of the climate and all that's gone on in America recently, there's not that much opposition. So I think this is the time, and I think that our senators and congressmen agree with that. And this is one of the very first bills that were introduced. And I think it's got a good chance of making it to the governor's desk, and I'm fairly certain he'll sign it if it gets there. It's Senate Bill 24, and this was presented to by the Senators Bollinger, Rappert, Stubblefield, Garner, Johnson, Flippo, Hester, Wallace, Hill, Irvin, Johnson, Beckham, Gilmore, and Rice, and by Representatives Pilkington, Ray, Beatty, Wardlaw, Cooper, Rye, Richmond, Gonzalez, Kavanaugh, McCollum, Bro, Bentley, Underwood, Cloud, and Crawford. The title is An Act Concerning the Defense of a Person with the Use of Physical Force or Deadly Physical Force and for Other Purposes. It's a stand your ground bill. Okay, and like I said, this has been going on for a while. Why we don't have a stand your ground bill here in Arkansas, I don't understand. Like I said, there has been some opposition, especially from law enforcement agencies in the state, that I don't think is present right now. So this is a wonderful time to take advantage of this. So basically, I'm going to read this from the screen, so I apologize if I'm not looking at the camera, but I'm reading directly from the bill. It says a person is justified in using physical force upon another person to defend himself or herself or a third person from what the person reasonably believes to be the use of imminent use of unlawful physical force by that other person, and the person may use a degree of physical force that he or she reasonably believes to be necessary. However, the person may not use deadly physical force except provided below. The use of deadly force in defense of a person is as follows. A person is justified in using deadly physical force upon another person if the person reasonably believes that the other person is committing or about to commit a felony involving physical force or violence, using or about to use unlawful deadly physical force, or imminently endangering the person's life or imminently about to victimize the person from the continuation of a pattern of domestic abuse. So they're bringing in domestic abuse in this as well. It's not just someone that's entered your property causing harm. It's domestic abuse is now covered, which I think is a wonderful thing. It's also saying a person is now not required to retreat before using deadly physical force if the person is lawfully present at the location where deadly physical force is used, has a reasonable belief that a person against whom the physical deadly force is used is imminently threatening to cause death or serious physical injury to the person or another person. You are not the initial aggressor and has not provoked the person against whom the deadly physical force is used, and you're not committing a felony offense of a possession of a firearm by certain persons with the firearm used to deploy the deadly physical force. So as long as you're legally able to own a firearm and you're using that to defend yours or anyone else's life from the property, then you are justified and you're covered if the deadly threat is imminent. Now, it also goes in and says that you are not committing a felony and you are covered if the person is in or at the person's dwelling or in the curtilage surrounding the person's dwelling, which means that any of the land adjoining a dwelling that is convenient for residential purposes and habitually used for residential purposes, but not necessarily enclosed. It also includes an outbuilding that is directly and intimately connected with a dwelling and in close proximity to the dwelling. And domestic abuse means physical harm, bodily injury, assault, or the infliction of fear of imminent physical bodily harm or assault between family or household members. Now, what I also like is not just to stand your ground and bringing domestic violence into it, but it's also going to bring in this. A pregnant woman is justified in using physical force or deadly physical force against another person to protect her unborn child if, under the circumstances as a pregnant woman reasonably believes them to be, she should be justified in using physical force or deadly physical force to protect herself against the unlawful physical force or unlawful deadly physical force she reasonably believes to be threatening her unborn child. So what I said, it's not just a stand your ground, but it's encompassing now domestic violence and pregnancy and all of that. So I'm really enjoying the fact that our legislators and our elected officials here in the state of Arkansas are really doing a good job. But I'm excited that these might actually have a chance for the first time, especially the stand your ground has a legitimate chance of passing here in Arkansas right now, which is amazing. So guys, get out there, be vigilant, Find out what's going on at your local and state level politics. Make sure that everyone has a state legislator that has a website. You should be able to go in on a daily basis and check the bills from the Senate or from the House that have been filed. Make sure that you know what's going on. If it's a good bill, a pro-gun, pro-second, or anything, a bill that you agree with, contact your local and your elected official at the state level. Tell them to vote for it. If it's something you don't like, make sure they know that you don't want them to vote for it. And then contact the governor and say, hey, if this bill makes it to your desk, we would really appreciate if you sign it, or please don't sign this bill, whatever the case may be. But be involved, because the national and federal stuff that's going on right now, it's crazy. But as far as your Second Amendment, the biggest infringements are probably going to come locally and at the state level. So involve yourself in the state and local politics. Make sure that you understand how it works and you're in constant contact with your representatives. Guys, get out there, be vigilant, enjoy your freedoms. This is the land of the free. Until someone tells you no more, then you're going to have to stand up and fight. But right now, enjoy your freedoms. Live every day for what it's worth, okay? Live every day to have a great day. We'll see you soon. Semper Fi.